properties that we own in our current portfolio, historical deals that we've done. We go as far as actually putting links to appraisals and environmental studies and a bunch of other things up there. We go into detail on our business plan as well on properties that we've already turned around, exactly how we've extracted value out of them. And so more than just the offering that we currently have, there's other great resources that you can find on the website.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have my friend Kevin Bupp. Kevin is a Florida-based real estate investor, top Apple podcast host. I've been listening to his podcast for a decade now. He's also the best-selling author of The Cash Flow Investor, with over $300 million in real estate transactions under his belt. Based on his decades of experience, Kevin has identified mobile home parks and parking lots as the top real estate investments in today's market. On his podcast, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow, he shares over 20 years of experience, guiding millions of listeners on how to find and invest profitably in commercial real estate. Under the umbrella of his private equity firm, Sunrise Capital Partners, Kevin makes investments in commercial real estate assets available to passive investors in order to help them build legacy wealth and achieve financial freedom. Beyond real estate investing, Kevin gives back to the community with the 72 Hours to Key West 280-mile bike ride, a charity event that has provided meals to tens of thousands of families in need during the holidays. Kevin, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Chris, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be back. It's good to see your face again.
Absolutely. It's good to see yours. You're a little more tan, at the end of the summer here, down in beautiful Florida. What the listeners may not know is you look like that year round, because you're in Florida, my man.
I don't know about year round. We definitely get a lot of sunny days, but it does get cold here. We get a good 6 weeks of where we got to put on, our puffer jackets, still try to wear flip-flops with the puffer jacket, but
Sure. I've been down there. I see those guys out there. You guys are wearing your North Face jackets. It's like 63 degrees outside, and it's like, yeah.
It's a wet cold. That's what they say. It's a wet cold.
Indeed it is. But Kevin, I'm being totally honest here. You're one of my favorite guests I've ever had on. You were with us over 3 years ago. I think it was episode 47, if I remember correctly. But one of the reasons I love having you on and having you back on is because your Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast, which I can see right there on your wall, was one of the first real estate podcasts that I started listening to like a decade ago. When did you start that podcast?
Yeah, you're aging me, man. Yeah, 2014. So January of 2014. So 10 years. I hit the decade mark. So yeah,
I love it, man. Yeah, you and Rogan out there is Rogan started in like 2008 or something crazy,
Well, that's the reason why I started it. I mean, back then I started listening to podcasts back in like 2006, and there was a handful. Real Estate Guys Radio Show that was around.
Oh yeah,
Jason Hartman he's kind of an OG. He's been doing this thing for like 15, 16 years. And there's a few other random ones, but there wasn't a lot of good content. There was good content, just not enough of it. And so that's why I started it. Now there's, as you and I both know, there's 1,000 new ones every day probably that get released, but
I know.
Lots of great information.
It's incredible. And somebody asked me the other day how long we've been. I said 5 years. I was like, we're going on. It'll be 6 years this fall. So we're excited to continue to produce good content.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a commitment.
It is a commitment. And it's fun, especially when, you can bring guests on like yourself that can provide not only value, but also inspiration. And, one of the things I love about your story, which I'd like for you to share with the audience, Kevin, is, you've got an amazing business today, but you've kind of had the real life hero's journey. If you don't mind kind of taking us back a little bit, before you started your podcast, to kind of how you got your start in real estate and how you ended up in the mobile home park space is where you specialize in today.
Yeah, sure thing. And so I always joke and say that real estate found me. I didn't find it. And so very, very grateful and blessed that at the age of 19 I met a guy by the name of David, who ultimately became my mentor. Met him through a girlfriend I was dating at the time. He was dating her mother, so very random occurrence there, but ultimately, he was a local real estate investor in Pennsylvania where I grew up. And at that point, I was literally going to school, not sure exactly what I wanted to do, but just going because that's what I was supposed to be doing, and attending bar in the evenings and the weekends to make money. And so I was having fun, but I didn't necessarily have a true vision of what what adulthood was going to look like for me, and what I could really pour my energy into. And so David came into my life at a very opportune time. And so he was a local guy that owned single family and small multifamily rentals. And so
Yeah.
fast forward a year and a half, I ended up working for him for free for about a year and a half. And in between school, in between classes, and attending bar in the evenings and weekends, I was there helping him in anything he needed help with. And so that's kind of how I learned the initial ropes. I literally would, if he needed coffee, I'd go to coffee. If he needed Home Depot supplies dropped off, if he needed me to, drop off a lease or pick up a lease, I mean, whatever it was, I was around him. I was listening to him communicate with, whether it be brokers or agents or homeowners that are trying to sell their home, or anyone that was involved in the day to day. He was kind of a solo entrepreneur. So fast forward, I bought my first investment property, a single family home, when I was 20, with my bartending money I had saved up, and a private lender loan that I had established through David and his resources and network, and that was the start of it. I'm one that doesn't like necessarily reinventing the wheel. If I see what I feel is a good business model, I just try to replicate it, maybe put my own spin on it, and you'll refine it as time goes on. But generally speaking, I saw his business model seemed to work for him. He was incredibly successful, lived a very different lifestyle than what I had lived growing up. And so I was like, well, heck, why am I going to try to do it differently? I'll do what David did. And so that's what I really did to start. I mean, I focused on single family investments for many, many years, and ended up really hitting a stride my early to mid 20s, and ended up accumulating about 125 single family homes and a few hundred apartment doors, by, I guess you could say leading up to '08. So I bought that first investment property in 2001. And then, leading up to 2008, predominantly focused on the single family, really building a portfolio of rental properties, and then also some smaller apartment buildings as well. And so that was the start of it all. Really,
and was that
really
in?
venture.
Remind me again, Kevin.
Yeah.
Was that you're from Pennsylvania originally, if I recall?
I moved down to Florida in 2002. So
okay.
I enjoy the snow. I don't enjoy 6 months of gray skies and very little sunshine. So I struggled with that growing up quite a bit. I never got used to that, and so I knew that I need to go somewhere at least where the sun shined. 300 days plus a year, and so I love the mountains and I love the ocean. It was either Colorado or Florida. Ended up moving to Florida. I knew one person here, came down to Tampa Bay, fell in love with it, and here we are today. So, so I hit my stride down here. I bought a number of properties up in Pennsylvania. It just wasn't as dynamic of a market. It was a smaller town, not a lot of growth happening, and just appreciation wasn't really a thing. You pretty much had to create the value by buying a really junky property. Appreciation didn't really happen organically year after year. Florida was growing like crazy, Tampa Bay, specifically. And so I really hit my stride. Like that's when what I didn't know is that Tampa Bay is literally home to some of like the original real estate investment gurus, like the late night infomercials. A lot of stuff got videoed like here in Tampa Bay. A lot of those guys literally resided here in the Tampa Bay area. And so I moved down here. There was no less than 3 different real estate investment clubs on a weekly basis that I could attend to within an hour radius of where I lived. And so I was really plugged in, meeting other folks that were doing what I thought was back home was like that was unfathomable. Like there was many people doing multiple deals on a monthly basis, guys that had hundreds of units in a portfolio, and so I just really plugged in. In fact, you and I both know Rod Cleef is a great friend of mine. He was one of the guys I met when I first moved here, him and his brother, and did some deals together, got to know them. And at that point, he owned 600 or 700 single family homes. And so really got to plug in with some guys that were doing some huge things early on in my real estate career. And just, again, tried to just, not reinvent the wheel and just replicate their model that worked. So that's what I did, Chris, up until 2008, basically. It was really residential, single family, and some multifamily focused. And I started dabbling a little bit in commercial stuff leading into '08. Like we bought a self-storage, 5-acre lot to develop self-storage, bought some other random commercial assets, some retail and some office, but really didn't venture into the commercial side of things until it was time to, go through the phase 2 or the rebuild phase of my journey, which is ultimately what, kind of brings us to where we're at today. I had a couple of years of challenge and heartache, 08 to 11, just more damage control than anything else. Just trying to figure out how to manage what I had, and then how to, get myself in a position that I could start rebuilding when the timing was right. So,
Well,
and
let's
that's what
let's
took me to mobile home parks. So that's when I
yeah.
got introduced to the world of mobile home parks.
Well, let's pause there because I think it's a great
Yeah.
spot to pause because you you hit some really important points that I want to highlight for the audience. And yeah, I got to spend some time with your partner Brian last weekend. We were talking about
Hmm.
that event in Nashville, and one of the privileges that Brian and I both got was to work with the investors in training groups. So this was a younger group of investors, and mostly high school kids. My 12-year-old son was part of it too, which was kind of neat to kind of see him learn from these kids. And we were highlighting some different lessons that the younger investors could take. And some of the things that you mentioned, Kevin, one of the things that we talked about was finding somebody that has achieved the success or the business that you want. And you said, like, don't reinvent the wheel. But the thing that really got my attention that you said was you went and worked for David for free. So, and that's a great
Hmm.
lesson. So if you're listening, you're struggling to find out, to figure out, like, hey, how do I start? How do I learn from a guy that, you know, knows all this? Find a way to provide value, get him coffee, set up appointments, help him out with the contracts. Young gentleman, Caleb, that helped me start out and grow my business. He was 15 years younger, a teammate that I raced with, and he was a marketing guru. So he came and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll teach you everything I know if you teach me and help me grow my marketing. So I think
Hmm.
that's a fantastic lesson that you mentioned, Kevin. The other thing you mentioned is, I hear this from a lot of young investors. They're like, well, how do I find money? How do I find money? And you said you found a private lender through a connection that David had
Hmm.
to get that loan done.
Hmm.
I had my mom co-sign on my first loan, and ultimately,
Hmm.
bought her out. She was kind of my private lender in a way. Um,
Hey.
so look for, sometimes you have to be creative when you're getting started. So if you're saying, hey, I'm going to go buy something off the MLS through a broker and get a traditional loan, you may have to do things a little bit differently. And a great way to do
Hmm.
that is going to those local meetups or local, we call them Kriyas, right? The back in the
Yep.
day. Now they call them meetups, it seems, which are a great resource. And the last thing you mentioned, which whether intentional or not, I think is a fantastic lesson. Find a growth market. If you can find a
Hmm.
market where the tide is rising, it's going to raise all ships. It's going to make your life a little
Yep.
bit easier. So if you can choose a market that maybe is slow, it's stagnant, it's going downhill, or if you're young and you have the ability, the geographic flexibility to move yourself or your family
Hmm.
to a market in Florida or Arizona or the Southeast, that's growing, that has a real need for what you're providing, that can make life easier. Anything you want to add to those
That's
lessons,
right.
Kevin?
No, no, it's interesting. I mean, you hit some great points there
Yeah.
as it relates to me work for David, but I don't know if
Yeah.
you had the opportunity to spend time with Brian. Obviously, he's a brilliant individual.
Yeah, he's
I'm sure
awesome.
you
Yeah,
probably agree, right? Really sharp guy.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
that's how Brian and I met. And I don't think
Oh, yeah.
we probably talked about it before, but
Yeah.
we literally met through my podcast. I used to do free calls every Friday just to give back and meet
Yeah.
other people that
Yeah.
were either in real estate, wanted to get in real estate, just have fun conversations, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of times you never know where those conversations might lead. But Brian was very successful in his own right. Very academically privileged individual,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
brilliant person, and very successful in his original career path. But he wanted to get into real estate, and basically came to work for me for free. Gosh, for
How
probably
about that?
for about a year, maybe even a year and a half,
Yeah.
and then ultimately worked into becoming a minority partner. And then now,
Yeah.
as we're pretty much equal within the organization after
Awesome.
whatever, seven or 8 years together. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's just it's a beautiful thing, and he's brought
Yeah.
a ton of value to the business.
Yeah.
He's everything I'm not, so it's like a good
Oh, it's
complementary,
perfect. Yeah.
partnership, and yeah, that's what I've always looked for, and that's what's always allowed me to thrive in the different businesses I've been involved in. So
Yeah.
and that's not for everybody. Some people like to be kind of the the solo guy and just
Yeah.
not necessarily have partners, but I've always found it to be incredibly beneficial. But anyway, I thought I'd share that.
Yeah.
That's how Brian
I
and I
love that.
really started what is Sunrise Capital today. So
Yeah. No, I love that. I really appreciate you sharing that because I think, one of, it's fun to make money, but it's even more fun to make money, to be successful, to help other people when you're doing it with your friends and other good people
that's
to do
right.
that. I think that's fantastic. And my wife and I worked with a business coach several years ago when we were building spec homes, and we took all these personality tests. And I'll never forget, we get online with this gentleman. His name's Will. Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer several years ago, but just a phenomenally kind of wise individual. And he said, this is really interesting. He goes, I find that couples that are successful have one of two things in common. They either are very similar, so they work very well together because they're very similar, or they're complementary to each other. And I think that's a great lesson. What you say is, my
Yeah.
wife is everything that I'm not in a lot of ways. We communicate differently, but if you can
Yeah.
find somebody,
Me too.
yeah, there you go, man.
It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
great though. Yeah, but we're very different.
But yeah, that way you're bringing more value to the partnership. And it takes what I found. It's actually harder, I found, Kevin, to find somebody that's different from you and partner with them because
Mm-hmm.
you tend to communicate slightly differently. You tend to come at it from a different
That's right.
direction. But again, if you're looking for a partner and you have that ability and to step back and say, okay, can I find somebody that is my complement, that can really
Mhm.
do those things? It can provide tremendous value, and I think be a more robust partnership over time.
Yeah. I have to give Brian credit for that because he had the opportunity of listening to me for a number of years, understanding who I was. I spoke about my family, myself personally, and so he knew me really well. I didn't know him really well, and so
Yeah.
he's the one that pressed me for many months, and I tried to push him away because I'm like, who is this guy? What's he want? And we got to know each other, and just it
Yeah.
was a match made in heaven. So, but yeah,
That's
to
awesome.
your point, we
Yeah.
communicate very differently, and
Yeah.
if it
When your
weren't for
hair, like,
him
I mean, you guys are
pursuing
literally
me,
like, you have the great hair. He's got no hair. I mean, you got that
that's really
going,
funny.
right? So he might have the foresight to work with you, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna have to say that, yeah, I'm kind of right in the middle of you guys, so I can make fun of both of you guys because I'm kind of got a little hair, not as much as you, not as little as Brian. So, um, he might not think that joke's as
That's funny.
funny as you do. I don't know.
No, he does. He jokes about it all the time, so we're good. You're safe.
I made that joke. I made that joke last on Sunday when I saw him. So you come up to the great financial crisis, and look, I think whether whether however you made it through, I can tell you, we started buying properties in 1999. No matter what, if you're in real estate, it just wasn't a fun time. It was
Hmm.
tumultuous. It's like being on a rough sea, it's like you're getting a little seasick as you go through that. What did you learn going through that, Kevin? And when you came out, when did you kind of go
Yeah.
full force into the mobile home side of things?
It's interesting. I actually had this conversation and I approached it from a different angle yesterday when I was
Yeah.
on the show. And I think one of the like we've had a great year and a half. Last year was actually literally one of the best years from an acquisition, from being able to be opportunistic and actually be able to buy when others weren't buying. And
Yeah.
I was not in that position in 2009, 2010, 2011. It just wasn't. I
Yeah.
wasn't in the financial state. And you know, there's a there was while there was a lot of inefficiencies with the business model I ran back then, which was a single family stuff. We were spread amongst
Mhm.
like 5 different counties. The technology now, as far as on the PM side of things, on property management side, didn't really exist back then. So you literally had
Right.
leasing agents driving from one house to the next, technicians or maintenance guys doing the same thing, and it
Yeah.
was incredibly inefficient for a lot of reasons. But on top of that, I think the bigger mistake or challenge that I didn't acknowledge, I think, leading up to '08 was, there was this, I don't know if you recall back then, just like that happened in 2020, 2021, 2022 when race went really low. There was this frenzy, like everybody's
Oh yeah.
buying. If I don't buy something, even if I mean, I can make the numbers work. And even if the numbers don't work today, they're going to work tomorrow because the values are going up, rates are going to stay low forever, right? So
Yeah.
there's this sense of urgency to buy, and a lot of times the fundamentals fly out the window, and like the
Yeah.
discipline goes out the window.
Yeah.
And um, I would say that I was very disciplined back then to a certain degree. I was a cash flow investor. However, I think some of those fundamentals started going out the window. And like, we bought single family, so it was a little different.
Mhm.
We had a certain formula of how we had to buy it. 65% of the after repair value. We had a basic
Mhm.
formula, sometimes 70% depending on the neighborhood. But it also had the cash flow. And I think a lot of things happened in Florida back then. We had a lot of hurricanes, insurance costs went through the roof. That was a major challenge. I mean, that was huge. I mean, literally insurance costs, like just like they are today, they like, tripled or
Right.
quadrupled in a matter of a couple of years. That crushed a lot of cash flow. I didn't care if you're buying things for 65, 70 cents a dollar. It
Yeah.
didn't cash flow anymore. And I think that's the fundamental that I started losing sight of. And we were buying deals, just assuming that we've got the buffer there. And even if they continually just go up on an incremental basis every year, like we're really safe, even if we're not making a lot of money on a monthly basis, not really
Mhm.
factoring in what happens when a major hiccup occurs,
Right.
when a market actually
Yeah.
crashes, right?
Yeah.
So that value went away within a matter of 12 months. It just completely was
Wow.
gone. And so,
Yeah.
um, fast forward to today, it's interesting because one of the dynamics that Brian and I've had, so over the last 4 years, Brian is on the IR side of the business. He does a lot of the capital raising side,
Hmm.
and I'm on the deal side. So I'm looking at all the deals. I'm sourcing everything, giving the yay or nay, and kind of running the operations side of the house. And there was a lot of push pull in 2020, 2021, 2022, even, before rates started going up. Just there was a lot of money flowing around. We had a lot of
Yeah.
investors that wanted us to deploy capital. And Brian and I always had this, it was a really it was a healthy contentious debate internally in the organization,
Yeah.
but it was hey Kevin, I'm turning away investors. They're not happy that I can't take their money. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't make deals pencil out. I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you. I'm looking at a lot of deals, we're making a lot of offers, and
Yeah.
we're not there. Right. And
Yeah.
so it was a lot of stress. And I feel like I was missing out sometimes. But I tell you, a year and a half ago, when rates started going up and things started, really becoming challenging, and
Hmm.
everyone's, frantic, and, debt maturity is starting to come due over the last 12 months. We have none of that. We have none
Yeah.
of that. We're in a really, really safe position with our current portfolio, and it put us in a really good place to actually take advantage of the market last year. And we bought some
Yeah.
incredible opportunities at great discounts, not
Yeah.
distressed properties, but distressed
Yeah.
situations. So I'm sorry, Chris, I forget what your original question was, and I went off on a rant there. As it relates, you asked me something about back then, but I don't recall what the
No,
original
it's
question was.
well.
But
I'll tell you what.
anyway,
I'll help you out. So, we're talking about kind of like what was learned from going through the great
yes,
financial crisis
the,
to kind of the pandemic,
the
and I think what
fundamentals never change. The
yes, you
fundamentals
got to
never
stay
change.
disciplined.
Like that's it. Like
Fundamentals
that's
don't
it.
change.
Literally,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
fundamentals they never change. Like rates have gone up. A lot of we still make a ton of offers. A lot of sellers still have pricing expectations of what
Yeah.
they were 2, 3 years ago. At the end of the day, the fundamentals do not change. I don't
Yeah.
care what you could have got for your property 3 years ago. I can't make economics work, and I don't have the crystal ball that's
Yeah.
going to tell me that rates are going to go back down
Yeah.
by 300 basis points over the next 2 years. That I can
Yeah.
model that. And so I got to model on what's apparent and present today,
Yeah.
and what's realistic. And so again, the
Yeah.
fundamentals don't change. If the deal doesn't make sense without you stretching or financial engineering to make it do so, then you move on and
Yeah.
do the next one. So
Absolutely.
that's it. I
No, I
think just
think.
staying
Yeah.
disciplined. That's it. I mean, like that's and it's tough. I mean, I'm really happy now, but I can tell you that was a big challenge in the last couple of years with Brian and I. I mean, not in a bad way. It was
Yeah.
a healthy internal struggle that we had.
Yeah.
But he knows that I went through this period. I'm like, I don't want to do this a third time. I want to, keep what we have, protect our
Yeah.
investors' capital, protect our families along the way, and ensure that we've got something that's stable footing and something that will serve all of us well through these coming years, no matter how challenging they are. So,
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to, the question I really want to, finish our discussion with today, which is, mobile home parks during this period where we've seen so much, tumult. It's been so tumultuous here the past few years. We had 2019, we had the pandemic in 2020, we had the whipsaw coming out, and that was when you and I when you were last on the podcast, kind of early 2021, where this kind of, frenzy started,
mm-hmm.
going into 2022 when rates started their unprecedented rise, right? 5% in what, 6 months?
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
just crazy, which has really crushed a lot of investors out there and a lot of operators out there that didn't have, that discipline or didn't see it coming. Whereas, our mobile home parks in our portfolio have been the stalwarts in the
mm-hmm.
portfolio. Very stable, very steady. One of the things that I think people know but don't really maybe know the extent of it is we have an affordability crisis in this country,
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah.
So why do you feel like mobile homes, mobile home parks are going to continue to be a great opportunity for investors going forward. Are you a high-income business owner or professional earning 300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire, or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to the affordable housing crisis, I mean, you could pick any mobile home park that you currently have in your portfolio, anyone that we have in our portfolio, and I guarantee no matter what market it's in whatever state across the country, it is the most affordable housing option in that respective marketplace. But it's actually a better quality housing option than a lot of the apartment complexes that exist, which is the alternative for a lot of our tenant base. And so, it really, mobile home parks really fit in this void, this massive void that we have of affordable housing. And the mobile homes of today are not what folks you perceive them to be, right? They're not and while you still get parks that have these old metal trailers in them that were built 50 years ago, but even then, that doesn't mean that they're not nice.
Yeah,
I've been in many of homes, I'm sure you have as well, that are 40 years old, that are remodeled with really nice high-end, luxury vinyl plank flooring, nice counters, nice bathrooms, nice light fixtures, LED lighting, all the new, just like a house. You can renovate mobile homes
and
as
I've been in them
well.
before they were renovated, and they're not always
Yeah,
so nice.
right. But no different than that of a single family home. I mean, you can make it nice. It's nice or as ugly as you'd like, right?
Exactly.
But really,
and it comes
but speaking to
apartments,
the
the
new,
same thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But the new product that's out there, these mobile homes that are rolling off the assembly line, and what we, what number one, what as a mobile home park owner, what we can buy them for, and then what we can turn around and sell them for the end user consumer, the value for that end consumer, it's greater than that of any apartment. I don't care, even if it's a C-class apartment, there's not really typically anywhere cheaper that they can live in that local marketplace that they're in. And again, this offers a much better quality living experience than that of any comparable apartment complexes.
Yeah.
And it allows folks to, that want to have that American dream as well. Folks that truly want to actually own their own home. They want to have their own maybe they don't own the yard, but basically they have their own space. They've got their own parking, 2 parking pads. They can put Christmas lights up. They have no neighbors above them, below them, or either side that's banging on the wall or vacuuming in the middle of the night. So it's just it's a great option to, again, fix this affordable housing crisis. It's unfortunate that that there's, it's good and bad, right? Like, one of the big benefits of mobile home parks is that there's a massive barrier to entry because there's not new supply being built. So that's great for folks like you and I that own the communities.
Repeat that, Kevin. This is maybe the only area in real estate where there's decreasing supply.
Why is diminishing supply? That's right. Yeah, I mean, you got really 2 different factors. Number one, you got the NIMBY syndrome. Not my backyard. Everyone that everyone that lives in a stick-built home feels as though if a mobile home park gets built next door, it's going to lower their home valuation, right? And so, like that, and again, they got that old perception of what a mobile home park looks like, because maybe there's one in town, the other side of town, that's drug, sex, and rock and roll, and it's the wrong element. Like, those exist, but that also exists in apartment complexes. There's really bad apartment complexes, and there's really bad single-family home neighborhoods as well that you don't want to go into even during the daytime. So, but yeah, it's the NIMBY syndrome, not my backyard. So that's one, and then the second one, every municipality, they complain about the affordable housing crisis. They need more affordable housing in their local marketplace. However, from a tax basis, it's not in their best interest to allow a mobile home park to be built. While it might actually solve some of their affordable housing challenges that they have locally, it's not going to give them the tax revenues that you name it, a mixed-use property, a multifamily property, a retail property, whatever else could be built there would bring in for them. So it's not in their best financial interest to allow mobile home parks to be built. And so for that reason, again, it's the only asset class that I'm aware of that actually has a diminishing supply, meaning that more are torn down, redeveloped, shut down on an annual basis than new supply that comes online. So it's unique, and what I was getting to is that it's unfortunate because it really is. I'm sure you've been in some really, I mean, there's some really nice communities out there. Communities that
Yeah.
have a lot of
Oh yeah.
brand new homes in them, and again, the amenities are similar to that
Wi-Fi,
of what you'd find in
security.
a really nice brand
Yeah.
new high end apartment complex, like a
Absolutely.
A-class luxury apartment complex, and
Yeah.
at a much more affordable price.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. No, all those points are I mean can be repeated multiple times, and that is some of those things actually make this an even more resilient investment for the
mhm.
reason like you just said. If a city says, "Hey, we could use this property for something other than a mobile home park," well, an investor could potentially turn that mobile home park into something else in the future, if there was a higher and better use. But what was surprising to me, Kevin, I have one of my longest investors. He invested in our first or our second deal in 2016 or 2017. And the first time we were talking about mobile home parks, he lives here locally, so we get together every now and then. He goes, "Chris, my wife and I actually we owned a mobile home." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we're in this luxury lake community, and they were actually mobile homes." And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really understand the variety that are out there. I mean, Kevin,
Yes.
some of your properties that I've seen are just absolutely fantastic. These 3 and 4 star properties that are out there. But what I learned, actually with our church group going to, it's called Appalachian Service Project. When I was younger, growing up, we go to these mobile home communities and help fix them up. There's a
Mhm.
real pride of ownership that I didn't ever really see in the Class C apartments that we owned. So there's definitely a different pride of ownership that's there.
That's
And I
right.
think it's, as we try to solve this affordability crisis in this country, kind of like the energy um, situation, I think we need an all the above approach. So I
Mhm.
think, from an investor perspective, if you're interested in mobile home parks, the cash flow is great, the upside's great, has some really great long-term benefits, recession resistant, but it is something that we can do to really help the affordability crisis go
Yeah.
forward. It can be a real win-win for a lot of people.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. Absolutely.
Kevin, a couple things before we got to wrap up here. I want to talk about you got a book that listeners can get. We're going to put that link in the show notes. You mind sharing a little bit about the cash flow investor and what and how people can get that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can actually, if they're watching video, they can see it right behind me. I
Yeah,
released
right
it
there. Yeah,
roughly 2 years ago.
yeah.
And really, it's a compilation of two things. Number one, my story, kind of my experiences throughout the last 20 plus years of being a full time investor, the different, I guess, stages that I went through as far as growth and different asset classes I've invested in. I've got a number of case studies in there of deals, not just deals I've made money on, but also deals that had challenges and kind of share a little bit more of those challenges. But then the other half of the book is it's really a compilation of, I've had 1,000+ interviews over the last 10 years of doing my show, and there's been some absolutely brilliant folks on my show. And I try to always take away a gold nugget or two from some of these conversations and actually integrate those into my very own business and into my life. And so a lot of the stories or the tidbits that I share in that book are, that are pulled away from others, hundreds or thousands of years of experience, I guess you could say, collectively
Yeah.
from those that I've interviewed on my podcast over the years. So, but it's commercial real estate focused. But really the book it's very fitting for someone, even if they're a single family home investor or a passive investor, just to better understand the various asset classes that exist out there, how to make money in commercial real estate, how to drive values and revenues, and some other important tidbits as
Yeah.
well. So
I love that.
anyway, you can get a free copy. Like I said, Chris, we've got it set up as a free copy as well. You get a free physical version of the book. You can go to kevinbupp.com/free book and grab yourself a free copy. All you got to do is pay, I think it's $6.95 free, shipping and handling to get that free copy. So,
It's worth it. I've read it. Lots of gold nuggets in there.
yeah,
That's one of my favorite parts of your show is when you share those gold nuggets. Check out your podcast, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow
yeah,
with Kevin Bupp. We'll have that link in the show. And Kevin, you have your fund open currently.
we
Share it
do.
with investors how they can learn more about that if they want to learn how to invest and participate with Sunrise Capital Investors.
Sure. Yeah. So the company Sunrise Capital Investors, you can literally go to our website, investwithsunrise.com. We do have our current fund offering available and open. It's SCI Growth and Income Fund 4. All the information there. You can download the PPM and operating agreement and all the other relevant docs. But more than that, on our website, we've also got a lot of other, I guess not just helpful resources, but we share a lot of intimate details on properties that we own in our current portfolio, historical deals that we've done. We go as far as actually putting links to appraisals and environmental studies and a bunch of other things up there. We go into detail on our business plan as well on properties that we've already turned around, exactly how we've extracted value out of them. And so more than just the offering that we currently have, there's other great resources that you can find on the website as well. So again, it's investwithsunrise.com.
I love that. And we'll have that in the show notes too. And, last but not least, Kevin, you got a great charity ride coming up. We were talking about before the show. I'm going to come down. It's the 72 hours to Key West from Tampa to Key West. And I didn't share this with you before the show, but we've got a check here. So Next Level Income is going to be a sponsor this year of the ride. So we're excited to join you for that. And if you want to share a little bit about that, about how people can learn about it if they want to help out too.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm excited to have you, Chris. Finally, we get to ride together. I know we've talked about it for a number of years.
I know,
so
years.
Definitely looking forward to it. And it can be a little hot in November down here, so you're going to have to maybe train in your garage with the heater on or something like that to get used to the 85 degrees you might have down here. But
I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, this will be our 14th year hosting the ride. It benefits now it benefits two different charities: the Tiny Hands Foundation, which is run by a near dear friend of mine, Rod Cleef, and then starting right now, both local charities here in the Tampa Bay area. But it's a 3-day charity event. Again, 14th year that we've been doing it. We start in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, which is down here on the West Coast. And then we end up in sunny Key West at the southernmost point. And so it's 285 miles in total over 3 days. And it's a great group of people and, doing it all for a great cause. Two great causes, that is. So I'm looking forward to having you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there. I will train. I will put my puffy jacket on, train leading up to it, and get a little sweat on going there. But Kevin Bupp, thank you so much for joining us here, sharing your story, your inspiration, and your gold nuggets here with our audience today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Much appreciated, my friend.
Thank you. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.